Hello and welcome everyone to this live demo session on SAP UI5 and Fiori training with OData and Web IDE development tool with me Anubhav on anubhavtrainings.com. In this live demo session, we will look at the introduction of SAP UI5 and we will try to create a very small sample application using SAP Web IDE tool in our system as part of the demo. So let me get started with a course overview of how this course is structured and what is that you're going to learn together with me in this course. So as you can see, the UI5 learning is very easy. Recently, you would have seen that there is a change in the industry in terms of applications, the way we design applications in SAP world. So in the classical world, we used to use dialog programming, or in the web world, we used to use WebDynPro or BSP technology by far. And now with emergence of this new system, so-called SAP S4 HANA, most of the applications are built using SAP UI5 framework. SAP UI5 framework is the foundation for creating your Fiori applications. So learning SAP UI5 and Fiori is very easy. And we all are going to do that throughout this course without any copy paste of code. So our main agenda would be to see how to write each and every line of code ourselves to begin with and understand the intricacies of SAP UI5 framework with the core concepts. And all of that without any copy paste of code. So most of the trainers on the internet would show you the examples by copy pasting and showing the output and running away. But in this course, our main agenda would be to write every single line of code at front of you so that you can understand the meaning of that. So when you go into a maintenance project or an already running project, you will be able to understand each and every bit of it from the deep. Now, the course is structured in the 4 phases. So in phase 1, we are going to learn about SAP UI5 Foundation, which starts with HTML5, CSS, JavaScript, and jQuery. Now that makes your foundation strong. As you see that this is what are all the open source technologies, which is what used behind the scene of this UI5 framework. So understanding these core technologies is very important. Now there is also a myth in the market that to learn UI5 I need to learn Java. It's a myth. Please understand, Java and JavaScript are 2 different programming languages. You don't need to learn any Java programming to become an UI5 expert. Now, moving next in the phase 2, we are going to learn about SAP UI5 framework. SAP UI5 framework is also very, very easy to learn. We will be using MVC architecture, so-called model view controller architecture, to be able to build our applications. So that's what we're going to do in phase 2. Here we will learn mainly the MVC, SDK, software development kit for UI5, and also the UI5 core controls with the concepts like binding, binding modes, binding types, and also fragments and formatters. Now in phase 3, we will start with introduction of your user experience. We will learn about the key guidelines and design goals of developing applications from scratch, of how to bring these Fiori applications in shape so that these apps which you develop looks alike standard Fiori apps. So we will understand the Fiori architecture and also the latest Fiori 3.0. What does it mean? The design guidelines and how do we develop Fiori applications with the standard topics like component.js, router, root match handler, manifest.json, and lots of other stuffs of packaging our application, right? Our main goal will be to not just learn technology, but also learn the best practices throughout this course. So when you go for any code review or standard review process, you would never have any lack of confidence that your app will not qualify to be successfully be delivered to your end users. So you'll always make sure that your app will be very robust and it adheres to all the standards, including guidelines. Moving last phase, we're going to learn about working with the NetWeaver and OData services, how to work with OData services. So what will happen is we will build these OData services and we will integrate them as well with SAP Fiori applications. So you're going to do that entire process. How do you expose your current ERP data out and how do you use that ERP data could be an ECC system or S4HANA system coming out, and utilizing that particular data set into the system, and then building a Fiori app on top of it. And then, of course, some of the important performance guidelines when it comes to building these applications, like pagination, association, $expand, $select, all the $top, all the operations, including create, read, update, and delete operations using our OData API. Now, most of you, as I understand, may not have ever worked on OData. Don't worry. We're going to learn the core concepts of what an XML is, what a JSON is. We will also learn what an OData service is all about and how to build one for yourself to expose your current ERP data or S4HANA data. And finally, we're going to deploy this application and deliver it to the production system for physical consumption. Now, moving next, let's get started with our quick introduction of what is SAP UI5 and how do we build our applications typically in SAP UI5. So SAP UI5 is a framework. Now, when somebody asks you that it's a framework, what does a framework is actually all about? A framework is a collection of libraries. Each library is a collection of classes, and each class is a collection of attributes, methods, and events. Yeah, so you can see it's so easy to understand this framework. Using this framework, we will be able to build new UI applications which are capable of running on all devices, all platforms, all browsers. So that's the main benefit you get when you learn SAP UI5. For your information, SAP UI5 based Fiori applications are the default user experience nowadays for all SAP S4HANA ERP applications. So this SAP UI5 is a framework. It's a framework which will help you to build applications which are web-based. Which means you can access these applications over the internet and you can deploy them on any browser, any device, on any platform. So that's the main benefit you're going to get when you learn SAP UI5 web application development. Now, this framework allows you to reuse something which it offers called libraries to build applications on top. So you are not reinventing the whole wheel, rather you are just reusing the framework provided by SAP and you are building an application on top of it. So basically, behind the scene, we will be using these libraries, and each library will have collection of classes, and each class will have collection of these attributes, methods, and events. So ultimately, it all boils down to these events, attributes, and methods and functions. So now, just to give you some example of libraries which SAP offers, one be SAP.m is so-called SAP mobile library, through which you will create applications. Then maybe we have SAP.UI.layout library to structure our content on a page. So all of that are the different libraries we have. Now coming to example of classes, we have classes like button. So button is a class to create a button on the screen. Then you have input is a class to create input fields. We have table, we have chart. SAP Viz library is used to expose the Viz frame or the chart controls. Then we have more simple one like list controls. We have radio button. We have drop down boxes as a select control. We have check boxes, we have reading indicator, all different kinds of classes are there. Now, taking an example of an attribute of a class, for example, if I have a button class, the button class has an attribute called text, which decides what will be the label for the button. Now, if you look at a method, you will have a get text method to just print or get the text of the button. Now, example of an event could be a press event for a button control. When you press on a button, what should happen? So with these examples, you are fairly clear about what is that we are going to get out of this framework automatically to be able to build our applications. So now whenever we wanted to learn any programming or any of the technology, we always starts with the very first thing, what is the tool I'm going to use to develop, right? So the very first question you're going to ask, where am I going to develop? So the very first answer to this first question is we are going to use a tool called SAP Web IDE. Now, don't worry if you are very new to SAP UI5, never heard about it. We are going to learn how to set up this tool in your system in our next class. So today's is a demo session. So I'm not going to show how to set up this tool in your system in this demo, but I'm going to use it directly. But later point of time in our very next class, I'm going to show you how to set up this tool in your own system, or without setting up, you can also use the cloud version of Web IDE tool because it runs on the web browser. So as the name suggests, Web IDE, it's a tool which runs on the web browser, integrated data development environment tool. So we're going to learn that how to get access to this tool for free. Yes, one single developer, a developer who is just using for learning and training purpose can get this tool for free in the system. So we're going to do that in our next class. So today I'm going to use it, which I already have it in my system. Now in phase 2, the step 2 which you have is, once you know which tool are going to be used, second is how am I going to code, right? So when you are coding specifically, you have three important things here. The first thing is, how do you initialize your program? So this is what we will learn. How do we initialize our program, and how are we going to write our code? What are all the best practices, or which is the architecture to follow to write the code? And then finally, once we are done, how do we organize all our code which we are writing in the system, basically doing a syntax check and stuff like that. So that is going to be our phase 2. And finally, once you are done, you're going to have your phase 3 where you're going to say, I want to run my application. So the very last phase is, how am I going to experience, how am I going to how to run the app, how to test the app, how to make work with the results. So basically it's like say checking the output, if the output is coming. So these are all the simple 3 phases. Even you name any programming language you have ever learned in your life, be it C programming or be it any ABAP programming, because most of you come from ABAP background. So you would know that this is how we typically do the programming, the first step towards the programming. So let's get started. Now, before we get started, I would wanted to also explain you quickly about the architecture which we're going to follow to build our application. So we follow in SAP UI5 something called an MVC architecture. Now, what is an MVC architecture? It's very simple to understand. Anytime you start learning or anything, any machine in the world of engineering, you would see that there are 3 parts of any machine on this planet. So one is called input output, then you have processing, and the third section you have is called your data. So the MVC architecture is exactly follows this same principle of input, output, processing, and data. So input, output in the MVC architecture is nothing but your view. The view is what users see, or what you want user to see, or what you want user to interact with your application. Input, output, that's what your view is. Processing is where the engine is, or where the execution of logic happens, right? Now that's where you have the processing unit, and that's nothing but your controller. And finally, you have the data. So data is what something which is a raw data or processed information, and where is this data getting stored is called model. So we have these 3 sections: MVC model, view, and controller architecture, MVC architecture. So basically, when you're building a UI application using SAP UI5, we are going to follow the same MVC architecture. There will be also interaction between the view and the model. So that's the exact interaction you're going to have between the view and the model, between the view and the processing unit, as well as similarly on the same way, you're going to have interaction between the model as well as between the controller. So they all exchange the information between them. So just in today's demo example, what we're going to see is we're going to create a view with just a button, which is what users see on the screen. And when user clicks on this button, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write the equivalent processing logic in my controller. So all my processing logic to handle this button code will be written over here. So whenever user press the button, what to show to the user. For simplicity in the demo, I'm not going to show today the model concept. So let's keep it light and simple so that you can understand step by step, line by line. So let's begin. Again, following the same phases, we'll start with our development tool. So I've already done that setup in my system. Don't worry. In our next session, I'm going to show how to set up this tool. So I'll switch it over to my development environment. And as you can see, it looks like pretty much a same development environment anyone ever have experienced in your life. So maybe if you are an ABAP developer, you know about SEET or ABAP Workbench development environment. So you have typically on the left side here, all the projects, all the artifacts will be displayed, and when you select a particular file, that particular file data will be displayed on the right side. So basically all the content or the file editing will happen on the right side. So this is how any development tool looks like typically. It's a kind of a panel approach. So on the left you see all the objects, on the right you see the content within those objects. So I'm going to create a new project altogether. Let's start. So we right click on the topmost node and create a new, and I'm going to create a folder. So my folder here is indicating my project. So let me choose a project name. Let's say Anubhav demo. Click on OK, and I've got an empty folder created. Awesome. So now this is my step number one to open my dev tool and then create my first project out there. Now, as part of the initialize process, we are going to load our UI5 framework. So let me create a file inside, right click and create a file in our project. And we can name anything to this file. Maybe I say demo.html file, because browser would understand the HTML file. Whenever you're running anything in the browser would need an HTML file. That's the fuel browser consumes. And this file contains an HTML document which has a header and a body. So just like humans have header and body, our head is our brain and our body is what others can see. Similarly, an HTML document, when you write, it has a brain and the body. Now brain is actually does all the processing. So here in this HTML, what I'm going to do is I'm going to initialize this SAP UI5 framework. So to initialize this SAP UI5 framework, there is a specialized code or sample you have to write, and this is called a script tag in the world of HTML. So if you are very new to HTML, don't worry. In our chapter 2, we will start with the introduction of HTML from scratch. So that way you will get so comfortable, as I understand most of you from SAP background, where you would have worked on BW or BPC or portal, or as a portal consultant, or as an ABAP consultant, or as a WebDin Pro consultant, so it doesn't have much idea about these open source technologies, it's fine. We're going to do that all in our classes 2 to 10. So now I come here and use a script tag. And in this here, we're going to give the address where I'm going to load this or initialize this SAP UI5 framework. So we're going to say source, and I will say, please load it from the internet. And I'll say HTTPS sap.ui5.hana.ondemand.com. This is the address from where we load our SAP UI5, and the exact address is /resources. So please go to this country, and within this country, please go to this particular city, and within this city, please go to my home, SAP UI core.js. So this is exactly the address of the UI5 framework, right? So we started with the framework. So now this framework includes lots of libraries. No, so we cannot afford to load all these libraries because we're probably not going to be using all of these libraries. So to make our application more faster, we tell also to the system that please don't all the libraries, please load only the libraries which are really need. So SAP UI-libs, and I'll say please load only SAP M library as so-called the mobile library. And also when you're loading this library, together with that, I want to also load the default color scheme which UI5 applications would have. So you also give data SAP UI theme. And we're going to say SAP Blue Crystal. Or I can use latest SAP Fiori 3D theme. I guess it's Fiori _3. So we can also do that. So that's your initialization step. The very first step where we loaded the framework, we loaded the desired library, and also loaded the latest SAP Fiori 3D theme over here. And now in the body, we can just also write a class name to just experience if my SAP UI5 framework is properly loaded by maintaining this classification property at the body level, saying that if the entire page look and feel is changed like a Fiori like look and feel because of this new theme or the theme which I mentioned, then I can be rest assured that my application has loaded the UI5 framework. Now also to show the result to the user, I'm going to say welcome to anubhavtrainings.com. Just save this up. And let's go ahead and execute this one. So I'm going to execute. It launches an app, and you can see it has got me a little white background with welcome to anubhavtrainings.com. So that's my output, how it looks probably. But now you may be wondering why is my little background is not turning little Fiori like background, which typically we have a Fiori like background as a blue, light blue color. That's because of the theme. So we are currently using Fiori 3 theme. If I just go back and change this to SAP Blue Crystal, and I'll save this and I'll come back and reload. You can see now the background of my page is changed to blue color, light blue color, which is a standard kind of a Fiori-like experience which you get. So that's the purpose of this theme statement. It loads different experiences depending on the need you have. Now, more details we're going to learn it in chapter number 7 and chapter number 11 about this piece of code. So since this piece of code is initializing our application, we also call it as bootstrap. Now, as you just saw that I am not doing any copy paste of code from somewhere else, which is not an effective way. I'm writing every single line and explaining you the meaning and the purpose of the line so that you can get hold of these things much easier way, right? So now let's go ahead and create our first view and controller. So we're going to follow the architecture to create our view and controller. I'm going to right click on my folder and say new. Hey Web IDE, please create me a view. So now the view doesn't come alone. It comes with its controller where the processing logic can be written. Now, if I wanted to do that, I would later on want to address my view. Now, if you wanted to give an address to your view later point of time, you have to also inform SAP UI5 what will be the address of your folder. So this folder which you see Anubhav demo, I need to give an alias name to this folder so that I can address my view accordingly, which is also known as namespace. So that is something which we also have to give here, data SAP UI resource roots equals to, and this is what I'm going to type here, curly braces, and in here I have to say my current working directory is going to refer with the name, let's say demo, or you can name anything, or maybe just say August, since we are in August. So let's say AUG August, and I'll say my current working directory dot slash my current working directory of this file. So this is the demo file. My current working directory is this Anubhav demo. So please reference this current working directory everywhere on my entire app as August or AUG. So whenever you are pointing or trying to point a file inside your directory, inside your project, you're gonna start with the folder name, which is AUG. So this whole folder name is named as alias as AUG. You can also go back and change it to Anubhav demo to just kind of avoid confusion. So now I'll say this, my current folder name where this file is Anubhav demo, and I'm informing this to my to UI5 framework that please consider if anything starts with Anubhav demo, I'm referring my own folder. I'm not referring you, but rather I'm referring my own folder. Now you'll see the meaning of this in a moment. Maybe we can also change it to just August AUG again, just to show you how it works. And now I can right click and create new, and we add a new view. And now you see here system is asking you the namespace. That's the exact same thing which I just showed you, giving there the namespace, giving there the name of your folder. So which folder do you want to create your view? I want to create it in AUG folder, August folder, and my view type is an XML view. And let me give a view name. I can give anything, let's say main, and I can say finish. And as a result, now you see system has created a view over here. Of course, it's right now as an XML view. Now, many of you have no confidence in XML right now. Don't worry. We have a dedicated chapter on XML in general, what an XML is and what an XML view is right now. But right now, as at the moment, just understand that this is your input output, and then you see this controller. This is your processing, where your processing happens. So right now we don't have a model in this setup. So I go to this view, and I have got a page in this view, which is what users see, and a title of the page, and I can say welcome to anubhavtrainings.com. So I just save that, and maybe I go back here and I get rid of this, bye-bye, and I will just put an element here, a kind of a canvas element with an ID called Anubhav. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to create an object of this view which I just got it. So I've got a view here, and this view I need to create an object of this view to display that view actually in my app. So what I will do is I come back and write in the header again another script tag, and over here we're going to write a little bit of code to create object of that view which I just created, and that object I'm going to add it to my body. So in my body I have an element called Anubhav. This is my kind of a empty canvas. This is an empty canvas. I'm going to draw something in this empty canvas. So let me create an object of that view. So I can say variable var o view, anything you can give. So you see I also follow the gold standards or best practices. O means object, view means as a views object, right? So these new standards or the gold standard practices you're going to learn in the course as well. So now I'll say O view new, and I'll say sap.ui.view. Please create a view object for me, and what is the address of the view? So now since you want to create something, you need to tell where the view is. So just give the view name, and that's where I'm going to give the complete address of my view inside. So I'm going to say my view is part of my main folder. So my main folder alias is AUG or August, and then within that August AUG I have a view, and within that view I have a main view. So this is my address. So aug.view.main is going to be my address. So you can see the AUG is my main folder. Main folder has a subfolder view, and that has a file called main. So the address which I'm going to give here exactly is going to be aug.view.main. That's a complete address we're going to pump in over here. So let's go ahead, august.view.main, and then we're going to mention here the type of the view. Of course, you know the type of the view which we created was XML view, and once the view object is created, we need to take this view into the body of HTML. Now say place at, and please place it in Anubhav canvas. So please draw my view in this canvas area named as Anubhav. Now you must be wondering, how do I know this method, or how do I know this method? So don't worry, we have a chapter number 12, 13, 14 dedicatedly focusing on knowing these methods, or so-called UI5 APIs, and we will be learning something called UI5 Software Development Kit, where you can go and easily read the name of these methods. You can find yourself which are all the different methods available for which control and how can you utilize them. So complete documentation will be shared with you throughout the course to be able to learn these things manually yourself. Don't need to remember anything. You can always go and check the reference documentation to find the required methods which you can use and the purpose of those methods. So for now, we are good to go. So let's go back, and now you should see a new view or new page with the page title as displayed as welcome to anubhavtrainings.com. Let's go back to our app, and earlier it was looking like this, but now let me reload. And oops, it doesn't work, which means there's something wrong. So if there's something wrong, there's also always a troubleshooting available. You can just right click and say inspect, go to console, and here you can see you can always get the error. So sap.ui.view is not a constructor. And then maybe if I go back up, you can see here I have done, I guess, a typo at position 7 in a file. Somewhere something is not right when it comes to creating the object of the view. So the system is not able to instantiate or create my view object properly. So that could be a problem anywhere. So I guess this could be a problem here as well. So I've given an incorrect format for my file. So maybe just let me just cross check if I've given the format correct. So maybe just correct that format. So this could be the reason of my failure. So I have to just maybe change the format a little bit. We're going to discuss this format in the chapter number 6 about JSON format. So I will explain you there how to write a correct format, and I can come back and reload, and at least I get my blue screen now. But now I'm getting another issue. So again, I guess I have an issue with the format here. So let me just correct, I guess, this one. So that's the correct format I give, and let's come back and reload, and voila, you can see we have got welcome to Anubhav trainings, and my page gets loaded. So all of this troubleshooting is also, I will explain you how to do debugging and troubleshooting whenever it comes to writing your code. What is the format you should follow, and what happens if it doesn't follow format? How do you trace those errors? Because many times when you're writing the code, you can get these kind of format errors, and you need to be also smart enough to resolve them. So important is not to just write the code, but also what if there's an issue in the code, how do you fix it? Because sometimes you may not get a pure development project. You may be getting a support or a maintenance project where you have to fix the existing issues. So come back again, and now it's time to enhance the view just by adding a button class. So you know that we've got a library, and I'm going to add a button from that library with a text called click me. And then when user clicks on the button, what should happen? So on click is my event, and I just maintain that in the XML format. Now, many of you must be again wondering, what is this XML, how it looks? So don't panic. We have a dedicated chapter only on XML. I will explain you every bit of XML line by line without any copy paste, so you'll be able to get hold of it. Just consider this as a demo to just get a feel of how is that we are going to develop things. Now we've got an event on click. Now, as you know, this is just input output. You don't write any processing logic here. This is just display logic. So if I go back and run, I'm going to get a button, but oops, when I click on the button, nothing happens, which is very much obvious because we don't have any processing logic yet now written. So this is my method which I'm going to code in my processing engine, which is my controller. So I go back to this controller, and it's already generated out here. Now, what is this? This is called scaffolding template. We have a chapter number 15, 16 dedicated on understanding scaffolding. So I'm not going to cover that right now here. I'm simply going to go back and write this on click function. And over here we can say alert, which is an inbuilt function which I can use to show a pop-up to the user, and I can say, yeah, awesome job. Yeah, so I just mentioned that, and let's go ahead and experience now what will happen when you click on the button. This last time when we were clicking, there was nothing happening literally, and as As a matter of fact, that now we have added this code, perhaps it's going to now go back and show me the results. So don't forget to refresh, and now you can just click me, and there you go. You can see, yeah, awesome job. So that was how we can build our first application in just last 20 minutes, starting from step 1, step 2, step 3, step by step, line by line, zero copy paste of code, understanding the meaning of every single line. So that's how the learning process goes in along with me on anubhavtrainings.com for SAP UI5. Of course, there are a lot of hidden things here. You may be clearly not so sure about how am I doing certain things, but that's fine. Overall, the idea is to make you understand the flow of learning and the way we are going to proceed. And this was just officially an announcement of our new batch or a new live batch. So that's what we just saw. Using our dev tool, creating, initializing, organizing the content, and then we saw finally the result in the system. So let me move on to some of the frequently asked questions by many of you. So these are some of the questions which you all have asked till today before starting the batch. So let me quickly answer some of them. So what will be the duration of this training, and are there any prerequisites? So please understand the total duration for this is 40 hours, 40, and there is no prerequisite to learn this course except basic programming. If you know basic programming stuff, no matter which programming language, but just basic programming, if you know, like loop, if, else, and stuff like that, more than sufficient. Even a college student can, school student can learn SAP UI5 and Fiori pretty easily. In fact, they did it, and they are now placed in a very good position. Now, currently, we are going and getting into a live mode now. Now, the timing does not suit for me, as this live mode, the timing is morning 7 AM IST. It doesn't suit me. So is there any other way, or is there any fast track mode, because I wanted to really complete my UI5 learning in a faster mode? What can I do? So yes, you can opt for the video mode of training of our most recent batch and ask your questions over the email. And this option also applies to those who wanted to fast track their learning, put their learning on the fast track, wherein you wanted to go with your own pace. You wanted to maybe cover in one day 5, 6, 7, 10, 20 videos. And then accordingly, you wanted to go ahead and learn everything together. So this is what you can actually do it. And you don't want it to be part of this existing batch, which is going to be completing the classes day by day. And you can go ahead with video mode of training with all the videos in one go you're going to get. Now, what are all the tools we need to learn? Where do we get those tools to learn SAP UI5? So don't worry, as I mentioned, we're going to use SAP Web IDE tool. And in my very next class, which is planned tomorrow, I will show you how to set up this tool in your system step by step, line by line. And also probably you don't need to set up. You can also go with the cloud access of the tool, which is also available in a trial mode for free. Yes, Web IDE development tool is free for a single developer uses, not for productive one, but yeah, you can do learn using this trial tool. All the features are there. You can learn everything, whatever I'm going to cover in the course. Now, what about server access for OData service? Yes, OData is a very important ingredient for our UI5 recipe, and we are going to expose all our ERP, S4 HANA, or ECC, or suite data using OData service, and that's when we would also need an SAP server, which is then needed only last 10 classes actually. So for that, I'm going to guide you in session 29. Where do you get the OData server from, and what are the prerequisites and requirement to set up the OData server? In fact, you can use your company server. I will guide you all the required components which you can look forward for in your company machine to be able to utilize the same, rather than getting an OData server from us. If you don't have your company server at all, don't worry. We also have an options to provide you the server access, which you can access from anywhere in the world over the internet. Now, moving on, is this course cover real-time scenario? Yes, we do cover end-to-end development process of entire Fiori application, including standard techniques, which starts from building an app with the demo data, mock data, and then connecting with real data, and then finally packaging the app, deploying the app, delivering the app, and also activating and giving the app access over the launchpad. So all of this will be covered end to end as a real-time scenario in the course. I'm new to the UI5, and can I also learn it? You're a first time, no problem, don't worry. As I mentioned, we're going to cover everything what you need to know, as this is the main foundation course. Now, this course is designed in a way that even a fresher can learn, because we cover all HTML5, CSS, JavaScript, jQuery basics. You don't need to know also Java programming at all. It's a myth that you need Java. Java and JavaScript are two different programming languages. Their uses, purpose, and use cases are completely different. You don't need any Java here. Now, if I missed a class, can I refer that later point of time? We will record every class. So every session, in fact, today's session, we will record it and you will get the recording later point of time. We're going to give you a dedicated private blog access where you can go and watch the recording. In fact, this PPT and study material all will be a self-service. You don't have to ask or mail anybody. You can manage all your learning yourself, and you will also get recording of each video, each session right after the class. So you can watch that in case you missed, or even you don't miss, you can refer the repeat of the session hundreds and thousands of times by watching the video which is going to get recorded. So if you have more doubts, more questions, feel free to check out on our course page on anubhavtrainings.com/FAQs for your doubts and questions. Most of them are covered there. And I would thank you to all of you for joining this demo session. It was fantastic. And if you wish to enroll for this course, very simple process, just mail us on contact@anubhavtrainings.com, and that's it. You will be signed up and enrolled for the course. So with that, our next class is going to start tomorrow at the same time, morning 7 AM IST. It's a weekday batch, and I will hope to see you all in our next class. Thanks for joining this free demo session with me on YouTube. Anubhav signing out, and have a nice day. Goodbye.